Only until about a year ago, if you asked any car nerd or business person in the West about Chinese cars, they would laugh right in your face. They thought of them as cheap copies, bad products that would never stand a chance in the global market. But then something shifted very quickly. The largest electric vehicle maker in China, a company called BYD, did something unexpected. They opened their doors and invited me and my fellow car judges to go behind the scenes to see their massive factories. They handed me the keys to their newest creations, from the cheap models to cars you have never even heard of. Suddenly, the whole conversation became much more complicated. It was no longer a joke, and it forced everyone to take a closer look at what was actually happening across the ocean. I have a big problem with the way Western news reports on the Chinese car industry because it always goes to two extreme sides. On one side, you have people who completely dismiss the whole thing, pretending it is not a giant issue right in front of us. On the other side, you have people who sound like they have already given up. They tell you that the battle is completely won and lost, that China has already won the race, and that all Western car brands should just pack up their tools and close their businesses. It is all doom and gloom, but going on this trip and seeing things with my own eyes proved that neither of those extreme ideas is actually true. The true story is not just about a few impressive vehicles. It is about something much deeper that most people are missing. What we can see clearly is the incredible speed of their industry and the massive scale of what they have built in such a short amount of time. But even more importantly, we need to talk about the things that no one else is telling you. We need to talk about the serious growing pains. Building millions of cars very fast does not mean everything is perfect. There are hidden challenges, design issues, and structural problems that these companies are facing as they try to grow up and compete with companies that have been doing this for over 100 years. Let us start with one of the biggest myths about Chinese car companies like BYD. Outside of China, almost everyone thinks they only make 100% electric vehicles. That is not the case at all. When you walk through their assembly buildings, you see long production lines making plug-in hybrid vehicles. But these are not the regular hybrids you might be used to seeing on your local roads. In these models, you have a gasoline engine sitting in the front of the car, and if you look underneath, you can see a bright orange line. That line connects the power system to the battery. What makes this special is that the gasoline engine is not actually hooked up to the wheels that move the car. Instead, it acts like a moving generator. It burns gas just to create electricity for the battery, and then the battery sends power to the wheels. It is very much like an old American car from years ago called the Chevy Volt, using gas only to keep the battery alive so you can keep driving. To see how they build these, we traveled to the other side of a massive company grounds that was built back in the year 2022. This place is so large that it runs multiple car assembly lines at the same exact time, putting together completely different models side by side. For years, car fans and experts have argued about the money side of building things in China. People always talk about the special advantages that the Chinese government and its manufacturers have over traditional Western car companies. When you stand inside this factory, one of those main advantages is staring right at you. It is a concept where a company makes almost every single piece of the product themselves, instead of buying parts from other suppliers. This way of building things takes us all the way back to the early days of the American car industry, specifically to Henry Ford and his famous River Rouge plant. In that old factory, raw steel came in through one door, raw rubber came in through another door, and a finished car rolled out of the opposite end of the building. While it is not exactly the same here, it is very close. BYD makes most of the small and large components that go into every single vehicle they build, whether it is a cheap entry model, a mid-tier family car, or a high-end luxury vehicle. You have to remember that this company did not start out making cars. They started as a business that made batteries for electronic devices. Because of that history, they now make all the electronic screens you see inside the cars. In one of their mid-level cars, there are 3 large screens on the dashboard, and they manufacture every single one of them in-house instead of buying them from an outside supplier. As someone who used to work on the factory floor for a car manufacturer in Germany, stepping into this Chinese plant was an eye-opening experience. 2 major things stood out immediately. First, this is one of the quietest car factories I have ever experienced in my life. Second, it is incredibly dark. You might walk in and assume that the darkness and silence mean there are no people inside, and that robots are doing all the work. The truth is that there are actually a lot of human beings working inside this building. They just happen to be grouped together in very specific specialized areas. They stay focused on their exact tasks, like putting together the mid-size car lines we watched. The rest of the space is left to automated machines that move parts around in the shadows until the vehicles reach the very end of the line, where workers perform the final quality checks. When you put all these pieces together, a very clear picture begins to show itself. The true importance of the Chinese car industry is not what the mainstream media keeps repeating. It is not just about saving the planet with electric power. The real story is the unbelievable pace and the rapid speed of change that they have forced onto the entire global car world. They have created an entire industrial ecosystem that functions incredibly well. It is the kind of system that Western countries used to have a century ago, but eventually abandoned as they sent their manufacturing jobs overseas. Now China has brought that style of manufacturing back to life on a level that is hard to imagine. However, making a massive number of items does not automatically mean you will succeed everywhere. There are still major questions about how long these cars will last and how much they will actually cost when they are shipped to different regions of the world. This is where we run into some very uncomfortable truths that many people try to avoid. The Chinese economic system works on tight government controls. The main goal is to export far more goods to other countries than they import from the outside world. Because of this, the government keeps a tight grip over who gets to build things, what they can build, and what kinds of products are allowed to dominate their own home market. On top of those tight government controls, you have to look at national security. This is actually the biggest reason why China pushed so hard to transition to electric vehicles in the first place. They wanted to stop relying so heavily on foreign oil that could be cut off during a conflict. Then you have to consider how they manage their money to give their local factories a price advantage. You have probably heard people online talking about a super cheap $10,000 electric car that anyone can buy. The truth that no one wants to admit is that a car like that will never actually cost $10,000 if it comes to places like the United States. By the time you add shipping costs, safety upgrades, and massive government taxes meant to protect local businesses, that cheap price disappears. The competition between Western car companies and Chinese car companies is simply not taking place on an even playing field. To understand why Western media completely loses its mind over these Chinese brands, you only need to look at a vehicle called the Yangwang U8. This is a massive luxury SUV with more than 1,100 horsepower. It is packed with so much technology that if you find yourself in a dangerous flood, the car can literally float on top of the water and swim its way through a deep pool to safety. Some people look at this and see it as a brilliant piece of engineering. Others see it as nothing more than a wild trick designed to break the internet and get views on social media. When you look at it in the cold light of day, this vehicle shows you the exact philosophy driving the Chinese car industry. They put technology and software first before everything else. It proves they can write computer code that lets a heavy SUV navigate a swimming pool. But out here in the real world, vehicles have to deal with the harsh laws of physics, tire grip, and how a heavy chassis moves at high speeds. A vehicle cannot just rely on software tricks. It has to actually drive well, and it has to do so safely when compared to the best cars in the world. To test this out, they had us wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. By the time it was 40 minutes past 7, we were standing about an hour outside of a city called Zhengzhou, getting ready to put this massive machine through its paces on a closed course. The weather was cold, hovering around 40 degrees, but luckily the car had a heated steering wheel to make the early morning much more comfortable. I climbed into the driver's seat with a local instructor sitting right next to me. He gave me a simple instruction to look straight ahead, keep my feet off the brakes and that gas pedal once we hit the wet section, and just use the steering wheel to guide the vehicle. I pushed the heavy SUV up to about 45 kilometers per hour and headed straight into a slick, watery turn to see how it would handle a slide. I turned the wheel and initiated a drift, steering directly into the skid, just like I had learned years ago back in America while driving lightweight sports cars. It was a strange sensation to do this inside a giant, ultra-expensive luxury vehicle that felt far too valuable to break. The instructor looked completely shocked. He clearly did not expect an American driver to throw this massive machine sideways with confidence. We did it a second time, pushing the speed even higher. The vehicle weighs around 5,500 pounds, which is a massive amount of weight to control. These Chinese companies do a wonderful job of packing a lot of energy into their battery packs, but all that power comes with a heavy penalty on the scale. These are not light cars by any means. After a few wild runs, we turned on all the electronic safety systems and traction controls to see how well the vehicle's computer brain could handle the weight during a dangerous slide. I hit the slippery turn even harder this time, going a bit too fast to see how quickly the car would save us. The computer system did let me drift a little bit before it kicked in, which surprised me. However, the biggest lesson here was that the Chinese electronic safety systems do not react as quickly as the systems you find in high-end Western vehicles. When you drive a modern BMW or a Land Rover, the computers talk to the wheels almost instantly to stop a slide before it even begins. This Chinese SUV felt more like it was playing catch-up with the laws of physics, using brute force and heavy computer intervention after the slide had already started. It is a big vehicle, with a length that feels somewhere between a long luxury sedan and a mid-size sports sedan, and you can feel every bit of that weight when the planes of motion start to change. Later that day, we walked across the street in one of the main shopping and business districts in the middle of Zhengzhou. Standing at a major city intersection, I noticed something incredible that you almost never experience in a Western city. It was the sound, or rather the complete lack of sound. There were thousands of people and hundreds of vehicles moving through the intersection, including waves of small scooters, but there was almost no engine noise. Every now and then you might hear the rumble of a diesel city bus, but otherwise there was silence. The cars made almost no noise and the scooters made absolutely zero sound because they were all running on battery power. While this city does not have quite as many electric vehicles as a place like Shenzhen, where nearly half of all cars are electric, it was still a powerful look at how quickly an entire society can change its daily environment. We then got into another hybrid vehicle to take it through a tight, twisty obstacle course known as a gymkhana. The weather was still chilly, and while this specific model did not have a heated steering wheel, I was glad it had a strong heated seat to keep me warm. We made sure the car was out of its special winter mode so we could get full power. As I pushed the car hard through the sharp turns, I was surprised to find that you do not feel the heavy battery weight as much as you would think. Even though the vehicle carries two separate power systems, a gas engine and an electric motor, it handled the tight corners surprisingly well. The steering wheel felt a bit numb, lacking the lively feel and feedback that makes a car truly fun to drive, but for what the car was built to do, it performed beautifully. It was an impressive experience for my very first time driving a Chinese hybrid through a performance course. This brings us to a very obvious question after seeing all of this. What was the single thing that surprised us the most during this journey? It was not the sight of flawless cars that we had never seen before in America. It was also not a collection of cheap, bad knockoffs of Western brands. Instead, what we witnessed was a deeply impressive first draft of a brand new generation of things to come. There is no reason for Western car manufacturers to fall into total despair or panic. Traditional Western car brands still hold a massive advantage over the Chinese auto industry when it comes to the things that matter to true car lovers. They are still far superior in driving dynamics, the physical feel of the interior materials, and the overall fit and finish of the body panels. Those are specific skills that took 70 to 100 years for Western companies to perfect. But here is the catch that should make every Western executive pay close attention. The Chinese car industry is not going to take 70 or 100 years to catch up to that level. Their pace of change is faster than anything the automotive world has ever seen before. For years, people watched the South Korean brand Hyundai grow from a maker of cheap cars into a world leader, and everyone marveled at how fast they changed. These Chinese companies are moving so fast they make Hyundai look like they are standing completely still. They are rewriting the timeline for how long it takes to develop, build, and improve a vehicle from scratch. To see the extreme end of this speed, They put me on a closed racetrack to drive their high-end sports car, the Yangwang U9. Before I could even get moving, I had to deal with a few quirks. They handed me a helmet that squeezed my face, making me look a bit silly. But I promised myself I wouldn't worry about it. As soon as I put my foot on the brake pedal, both of the doors automatically swung shut on their own. Looking around the interior, I noticed bright, contrasting colors on the seatbelts and little lights around the buckles. It was clear they took those design ideas directly from European brands like Porsche and Audi. I found the gear shifter up on the dash, set the car to drive, and headed out onto the track. This version of the car does not have the wild 3,000 horsepower used to brake world records, but it still has a massive 1,280 horsepower from 4 separate electric motors. The track itself felt like a short test course you might find at a specialized driving experience center. My instructor had taken me around earlier at high speeds to show me the turns, going fast into the very first corner. When it was my turn to press the pedal, the car accelerated with the kind of force that feels like it is tearing the skin right off your face. It has the same instant brutal power as a European electric supercar, but with an extra level of intensity that catches you completely off guard. As I approached the blue markers on the track, I tried to carry that same high speed into the corner, but the car did not handle it elegantly. I hit a patch of heavy understeer where the front tires lost grip and wanted to push straight ahead instead of turning. I wasn't entirely sure if that was my fault or the car's fault, so I decided to blame myself and keep trying to figure this machine out. There is absolutely no doubt that this electric supercar has an incredible amount of technology working beneath the surface. As you try to balance the brakes and turn into a corner, you can literally feel the onboard computers fighting against the massive 5,500 pounds of weight trying desperately to keep the car on the track. It is a wildly fast machine, but it feels like a freshman effort from a company that is still learning the deep secrets of chassis tuning. Instead of spending years perfecting how the suspension pieces interact mechanically with the road, their solution was simply to throw a massive amount of horsepower and computer code at the problem. It is an amazing piece of technology, and getting to drive it early in the morning was an absolute blast, but it shows that they still have a way to go before they can match the pure driving feel of a traditional sports car maker. When the track session ended, I noticed another funny detail about how these cars are designed. You would think that a high-tech car costing over $250,000 would have a very simple, clean interior. But when I wanted to get out, I couldn't find a normal door handle. I looked for a modern button to open the door automatically, but the actual release button was tucked away in a strange spot. It felt like the designers had put random buttons and switches all over the cabin. It is a reminder that while these companies are brilliant at technology, they are still figuring out the basic human layout choices that Western brands mastered decades ago. It is truly amazing to realize that only about 10 years ago, the entire Chinese car industry was seen as a joke. People laughed at their designs and their safety ratings. Today, that laughter has completely stopped. This experience taught us 2 massive lessons about the near future. First, this is not the immediate end of the road for Western car companies, because their deep experience in building high-quality, great-driving cars still matters. Second, the shift to pure electric vehicles is not going nearly as smoothly or as quickly as many politicians and executives want you to believe. The real story here is the sheer pace of change. The Chinese car industry has become the great disruptive force for the entire world. They are forcing old, slow global car companies to move much faster than they are comfortable with. This rapid acceleration is exactly where we will see true innovation happen in the coming years. The real takeaway from all of this is simple. Whether you like what these companies are doing or not, if you choose to look away and ignore the incredible speed and scale of what is happening in the Chinese automotive world, you are doing so at your own extreme peril. The world of transportation is changing right before our eyes, and the rules are being rewritten by companies that refuse to slow down. Until I see you in the next episode, see you later.